will be our 3 regular items for the committee's consideration that have been agendized for today, beginning with the election of the chair and the vice chair. At this time, the committee shall consider a motion and a second for members of the committee to elect a chair. Then the public will provide an opportunity to make comment before the committee discussion and final vote. The same process will follow for vice chairman. A motion at this time would be in order. So do I have a motion from any of the members of this committee for a chairman?
I move that we appoint Ronnean Lund as chair. Sorry.
Okay, so Lisa made the motion. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, a second from Bev. Do I have any other information? Okay, at this time, we will open it up for public comment. Do we have any people wishing to make public comment? Please approach the clerk of the board.
Can we start with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance?
Oh, absolutely, good idea. I did not see that in my instructions. We can do that, absolutely. I will lead you maybe a pledge of allegiance, and then we'll have a prayer. You can salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You saying a prayer?
Do we have a volunteer to say a prayer for us?
We do.
Okay, thank you. Your name, sir?
My name's
Rick. Rick, okay, thank you, Rick.
Yes. So Lord, we commit to stand fast in liberty, by which Christ has made us free. Help us to resist any temptation to be entangled in any type of bondage, Lord. Watch over our meeting. Emmanuel. Amen.
Amen. Okay, I posted the committee once again. We have a motion and a second. We would now open it up for public comment. Does anybody wish to publicly comment on
The
the
first public
motion?
speaker we have is Kim Moore.
Okay, Kim, if you could.
Okay, the next one in line is Laura Hobbs.
Good afternoon, board. It's my pleasure to welcome you guys to the NARCO meeting. I'm very proud of you all for your assignment. Obviously, you've been appointed because you stood out as stellar members of the community, ones who are interested in investigating, ones who are truthful and honest, and a fair judge. So thank you for your service to this community. And I'd like to invite you all personally to meet with me. I've analyzed over 50 different election contests locally. They include everything from our local contests to the statewide to national contests that occurred here in Shasta County. And I'm willing to sit with you, explain the data, from start to finish. You can also find the data available at www.shastaelectionnews.org. and click on the sheriff's report. I do a pretty good job in that report. It's just a 4-page document of kind of laying it out there in real simple terms so that anyone could understand it. I'm welcoming to any questions that you may have. And so I'd like to put that out there for you guys, an open invitation, and thank you again.
And members of the community, I do want to just remind everybody in the audience that the special meetings don't have public comment open times, so comments should be limited to only those matters on the agenda. So right now we are on R1, so comments should be limited to R1.
Like Laura, my name is Kim Moore, District 1, and like Laura, I want to welcome you all. Congratulations on your positions. I just want to state on the record that I have some serious concerns due to some of the shenanigans and antics that we've seen occur here. And Ronnean, I highly support your appointment as chair. And nothing personal, Bev, ladies, Susanne and Dawn, But also Lisa, I haven't seen any shenanigans or antics out of you at our board meetings, so I'd really like to see you be the vice chair. That's all I have to say, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, please approach.
I just want to say, no matter who sits in what position, I would really hope that your utmost mission statement is that we all seek a fair and transparent election, period. No matter who trusts who or doesn't trust anybody else. Let's seek fair and transparent elections, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? And please state your name also.
My
Again,
name is Rick Hutchinson.
yes, thank you.
And I would like to just hope that this board and whoever the chair is going to include the public. This is called the Citizens Advisory Committee. And we're the citizens, and I would expect that we're going to be involved in this stuff. So I would love to meet all of you guys personally. I'd like to know who everybody is, know who's running the elections and who's in charge of fixing the election stuff. I'd love to know that. So that offer's out there if anybody would like to meet with me, because I can be boots on the ground. I can do grassroots, looking things up, doing work that needs to be done to make sure that the number one thing in elections happens, and that's transparency. And this is something I don't understand, is the boxes. We have boxes out there placed all over the place, and those boxes, back in the day, they used to be clear. You could see the envelope drop down in it, and that clear, that was transparent. It was transparent, and that's what we need our new board member to be, transparent. The boxes aren't transparent anymore, but we need the new board member to be transparent. These elections are important. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anybody else? Okay, we'll turn it back over to the committee. Does the committee have any comments or questions before we vote on the motion? Okay, I will call the motion in roll call order. Unless you want a voice vote, is a voice vote acceptable?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. I would call for a voice vote on the motion to elect Ronnean Lund as chairman of the committee.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Did you abstain?
No, I voted. Oh, I'm sorry.
I counted a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
We can move on with the election of the vice chair at this time, and then what we can do is we can take some time to rearrange the nameplates and the seats of those in, the chair would be in the middle and the vice chair would be to the direct left.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed with the motion to elect a chairman of the committee. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Lisa Michaud as vice chair.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I will now ask for any public comment for the audience. Is there any public comment on that motion? Hearing none, I'll turn it back over to the committee. Does the committee have any comments on the motion? Hearing no request for comment, I will call the question by voice vote. Do I have anyone in favor of that motion? Please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Ms. Lund will sit here, and then Susanne, if you want, just for easy, you can just swap seats. And then Lisa and Bev, if you can swap seats.
Please state your name tags too, please, so we don't confuse the audience.
I can take care of your name tag.
That one's missing the doctor.
Oh, right. Did they do that?
Stephanie, Lisa's is missing the doctor.
You're all set.
All right, the meeting's already been called to order, I'm assuming. Okay, so we're on item R2, which is approved citizens election advisory committee bylaws for recommendation to the SHASTA County Board of Supervisors. Is there any discussion? Well, we can have discussion up here first, yes. Yeah. Any discussion?
Yes, I just need to find my notes. So concerns and questions, if there's things we want to change, are we able to change them now in the meeting, or do we have to, I mean, if we discuss it and we all agree we want to change these things, do we do it now and vote on it, or does it have to be a subsequent meeting?
It could be done either way. Obviously, a final draft would have to be adopted at a subsequent meeting, but you can certainly make changes if everybody agrees to those changes or the majority agrees to those changes. Then it can come back with a final version for your final adoption.
So, excuse me, Lisa, I'm wondering if we can go item by item. With that.
As the chair, that would be up to you.
Yeah, okay. Let's just go item by item. So starting with section 1.1.
If I may, if you could just give me a few moments to pull that draft bylaws up so I can start making notes as you guys make those changes.
Are there copies of the bylaws?
The full packet is available online. We have QR codes in the back of the room that will take you to that full packet so you can see the bylaws if you would like. While we're waiting, I have another question. I noticed that there were codes referenced, but they weren't linked in this document. And would it be possible as an aid to the committee and to community members to link any codes or legal references that we have for our various documents?
That would be unusual. Usually there's just references to the code sections that they're pretty easy to just Google them. But it would take some time to actually get that done because I use a specific legal research tool that I can't link to because it's paid for. So I'd have to go find them and link them that way.
So is there any comment from the board on section 1.1?
I'm sorry, my computer is very slow.
Oh, we're waiting on you.
I was just asking about the linking because Anderson Union High School District does it. It's just very helpful. So I thought if we could do that, that would be great. But it sounds like it'd be difficult. I apologize. So one more question. If we decide we want to link those, would we include that as a different motion later on, or would it just be an informal, we would like to include them?
If you wish to link them, if the majority wishes to link them, it would just, I think, just be part of the whole motion to amend, to make the changes you're requesting, so.
Thank you. I'm ready.
Okay, and do we have any comments from the committee on 1.1? Section 1.1?
I would like to see them linked.
That's not what we're talking about right now.
I have a question about 1.1. When I was on the website for the county, it referred to us as a board, and I've heard reference to us as a board and reference to us as a committee. legally, does it make a difference whether we're called a committee or a board?
Under the Brown Act and the California statutes, you would be an advisory committee of the board.
I'd like to follow up on that. So the intent of the Board of Supervisors was to have us be public officers. And per section 1001 of the government code, we have to be a commission or a board in order to be public officers. So I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as us being a committee, but we need to be a board or a commission if we want to align with the intent of the Board of Supervisors.
Well, the way the Board of Supervisors set this committee up is as an advisory committee to the Board of Supervisors. I don't know what to tell you, that is how the resolution is written.
Well, like she said, it says board somewhere and it says committee somewhere.
Well, if it's referencing board, it would be the Board of Supervisors.
No, it was referencing this entity as a board.
Oh, I haven't seen that reference on the website. I'm just telling you what the resolution is saying. The resolution has you listed as an advisory committee of the Board of Supervisors.
So, sorry, this is for the council as well. Your understanding is that would it make a difference what the name is, whether it's board or committee or commission, as far as fulfilling the intent of the Board of Supervisors and what we are here to do?
I haven't looked into that because I didn't understand that that's what they were trying to do. But I kind of got into this position in the middle of them working on this, so.
Well, so does that mean that we need to table that item anyway and talk with the Board of Supervisors to determine what their intent was? And if the intent is that we be a board or commission, then they need to revise their resolution.
That is potentially a possibility, yes. I mean, as I said, the way the resolution currently is written is you are an advisory committee.
And to further on that, if I may, Chair Lund, we could also have this committee consider these bylaws as a committee as it was established for Resolution 2023-099. With that, if the Board of Supervisors chose to move forward with a different resolution to repeal and create a new resolution that would establish you as a board, then at that time we could reconsider new bylaws.
Okay, well, I'm not sure we should move forward with approving these bylaws when it says committee, when committee doesn't provide the intent that the Board of Supervisors intended.
So the resolution that was signed off by all Board of Supervisors established a Citizens Election Advisory Committee.
Right,
That is the title of the resolution.
right. But that wasn't, yeah.
But that is the board's action, so that is the action that the board took.
Okay, all right.
And for clarification, if we vote on these now and we need to change them later, that isn't our purview, correct?
Yes.
All right. So that, I guess that's enough discussion about section 1.1. How about 1.2? And was there any public comment on 1.1? I'm sorry. Or should we take public comment?
We can take public comment after we make these changes, so that way the public understands fully what they're making comments on.
That makes sense. Thank you. How about section 1.2? Any comments?
Can we just back up just for a second here? So I hear what the two of you are saying about ordinance, about the board versus the committee. Where I think we lost a linkage here is that, as Stephanie has indicated and council has indicated, the resolution referred to this as a committee, and the ordinance that got pulled, I think, was attempting to make some of the commissioned officer type duties that you were talking about, and that ordinance never came back to the board for approval. That was pulled on Tuesday,
Right.
so.
Right. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I think there was just, a misunderstanding from by the board about what the difference between a committee and a board and a
That's
commission.
entirely possible.
Okay, how about anything for section 1.2? Okay, seeing none, how about section 2.1?
I would like to have removed the wording, the last sentence, that are subject to public records requests and that are subject to public review and inspection. Again, this wording seems to indicate that we're just a regular member of the public and not a committee appointed by the board of supervisors to work on their behalf, and that wording seems to be contrary to their intent.
To remove that language would be a violation of state law. You would not have that any more authority to look at the elections documentations than the Board of Supervisors would, and they would be also subject to the public records request.
So the
Nothing in the PRA request that allows your committee or the Board of Supervisors to just walk in and look at any and all elections records that they want to. There's nothing there.
Right, there are some exceptions to that if you're a public officer, and I can give you.
Very limited, and you usually have to be an elected official in order to do it.
Yeah.
Like an elections official, like in the elections department.
Well, actually, let me find the code section here.
While you're looking, I'm going to ask my question. What's the state law that you're referencing there?
Public Records Act, as well as the elections code.
Is there a number?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that.
All right, so tell me the name again, please.
The Public Records Act and the elections code.
So the whole elections code, you don't have a section. Could you come back to us with that, please?
Yes, I can come back to you with that. I didn't realize I would need that today. I'm sorry.
I just like to be fully informed, thanks.
Okay, well, I'll find out in a little bit. So back to what she brought up. Did you have anything else? Okay, so I have several comments on this section. One is, it says the purpose of this committee is to provide commentary. We're not providing commentary. Commentary is opinions. In my mind, we'll be providing reports of findings versus opinions. And the purpose is to have checks and balances for fair and transparent elections, to help promote public trust in our election system. I mean, those are all things that I believe this committee is being formed for. You know, I feel like this whole paragraph needs to be changed, you know, to investigate public complaints regarding election activities and examine election materials within the law. I think all that needs to be included. So I don't know how you want to handle that, Stephanie, if you want me to come up with a draft that we can bring back for the next meeting, or?
I will definitely defer to council on this, but my recommendation would be if we want to include the language that was established by the resolution under the purpose. So in the resolution itself, it states there are five, I believe there are five there, that the committee shall have the following powers. Review public records to ensure compliance with state and federal election laws by election authorities located within Shasta County. Number 2, review complaints filed with election authorities located within Shasta County that are subject to public records requests. Number 3, review and inspect all election assets that are subject to public review and inspection. Number 4, regularly prepare reports to the Board of Supervisors on committee activities and provide commentary on Shasta County elections and election processes. And number 5, no activity of this committee shall be authorized that impairs or hinders an election authority in the performance of their statutory duties or other authority as granted by the federal government or by the court. This committee is an advisory oversight committee of Shasta County Board of Supervisors. With that, I'm would be more than happy to include that as part of the purpose. But I also think one of the biggest things that you guys do is you collect that information and then you report, like when Ms. Lund said, to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
I would definitely like to include that wording here.
You're talking about the wording she read. Yeah. I still take issue with that because I believe that the intent of the Board of Supervisors was more along the lines of what the comments that I made. And I'm thinking that maybe the resolution needs to be revisited so that everything is copacetic.
Yeah, it could be. It might be that we have to move on, come to an agreement on what we have for their wording right now. And then when they edit their wording, then we edit our bylaws.
And Ms. Michaud, that was going to be my exact recommendation, that we move forward as a committee as it was established now. And then at the majority of the vote of this committee, we could bring future bylaws forward for future consideration should the Board of Supervisors change their resolution in some way or fashion.
Okay, so do you only feel comfortable adding in what was listed on the resolution, or can we add some of this wording about this committee being a check and balance for fair and transparent elections?
While I appreciate your personal understanding of the intent of the Board of Supervisors, that's not what was reflected in the actual record.
I understand.
So I'd like to stick with that so we don't wind up down some rabbit holes.
That's fine. So, okay, I can appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Section 2.2. Any comments on 2.2? I had added here as well as findings from ongoing investigation of complaints, and which is something that is in the resolution, that we'll be investigating complaints submitted to the ROV.
That is correct, and that would be one of the 5 bullet points that I added to section 2.1, or somewhere where we felt it were to be most appropriate based on the language on the resolution.
Well, this says provide reports to the board summarizing this and that, but it doesn't say anything about the investigation of complaints, but.
It does. So number 2 of what I read off the resolution that I will be adding into this section
Okay.
is to review complaints filed with the election authorities located within Shasta County.
Right.
Yeah,
But
so
it
that
doesn't,
would be.
but it doesn't say that we'll report that to the board.
But in
Just-
2.2, we could add, because it says regarding describing committee activities, which could be investigating the complaints, regarding Shasta County elections, election processes, and whatever the wording would be, community concerns or complaints.
And I also, again, I apologize for the interruption, but I do think that we're getting a little bit too granular to where if we specify the exact report that we want to provide, it could limit you on what you provide to the board. So my recommendation would be to keep the language as written and move forward with however you choose to prepare that report, because ultimately that will be within your authority to prepare that report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else on 2.2? Okay, moving on to section 2.3. Any comments? I would like to know what it means hinders an election authority. What does it mean? Anybody? Hinder an election authority.
That would basically mean interfere somehow in the performance of their duties, getting in the way when they're trying to process ballots, or asking so many questions that they can't perform their duties. I mean, those are just examples that could come up off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be more of a judgment call? I mean, it's not gonna be a distinct line that, because if it's hindering, it might be hindering because someone says so, but someone else not see it as hindering. So is there any way to avoid it just being a?
It would be hard to come up with a better way of phrasing it, I think, but I mean, I could take a look at it. At the same time, the election officials themselves are given quite a bit of discretion on how they allow observations to occur under the state regulations. So, and those state regulations are what really kind of controls what those minimums are, so.
I agree, that I would like to have you look into the word hinder, because I think impair is enough. I mean, impair means that we're not getting in their way, we're not preventing them from doing their duty. Whereas hinder then is vague. But I think impair encompasses everything that would be necessary. It wouldn't be disrupting their.
Council, is there any legal delineations between the words hinder and impair?
Potentially there could be, but I would need to look into it, but depending on definitions and some of the elections code, it could be a difference. Because hindering, impairing versus impeding, there is a definition of impeding that would apply for criminal prosecution under the elections code. So there is some distinctive definitions.
Thank you.
Okay, how about section 3.1? Seeing none, section 3.2? Seeing none, section 3.3? Sorry. Section 3.4? I have a question here. I would like to I would like to hear an example of this, because each member serves at the pleasure of the board and may be removed from office by the board at any time. Why wouldn't it be by the appointing board member?
Well, typically it's a board action to appoint all of you to your positions. You're selected by your member, but it's a board action to appoint you, therefore it would be a board action to remove you.
Okay. What's the purpose? Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the purpose of this paragraph is. I don't know. I just wanted an example of what the purpose would be.
That is a process by which most committee members would be appointed. It's also the process by which many boards are appointed that are created by the board as well. So that's just the process by which the board appoints.
Okay, committee member Duckett would like to speak.
Madam Clerk,
Sorry.
I'm just curious, I think that this was also in a resolution passed by the board, was it not?
I believe so, yes, let me
Okay.
just double check.
A lot of this language that I'm looking at is a direct reflection of what was in the board resolution, so I just wanted to point that out, consider that moving on.
That's fine.
That is true, and a lot of the language is very standard bylaws language as well, that other boards and commissions or committees have adopted. We usually take what we consider, as per the board considers, almost like a templated language, and then what we do is we make changes to it based on what established that committee, and in this case, was the resolution. And so that's why you'll see a lot of the same language in the bylaws that you see in the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 4.1.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so I was wondering, does that mean, the way that it's worded, does that mean that we'll do this again in January?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
One thing to note as well, at any point by majority vote of this committee, you can, any member could make a motion if it got a second and got a simple majority vote, then that could be done mid-year.
Okay.
as well. It's not common, but moving forward, the next time that would be standard to elect a new chair and vice chair would be the first meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. 4.2. 5.1. 5.2. Of course, I had a question on this. This, we can't, I don't know if we want to look at the schedule now, but looking at the schedule, there's some meetings in a row, and then some meetings every 2 weeks, and then it goes to every month. And the way this is worded, it says meetings shall be monthly for the 3 months leading up to each regular special election to allow for observation and inspection, and for 3 months following each regular special election to develop and finalize a report. And then any year where there are no special elections, the committee shall meet once annually.
So with that, these are basically minimums that we are recommending. As we'll see in our next item for committee consideration, obviously the committee is going to consider how often they meet, and obviously I have proposed or recommended more than just monthly. Multiple reasons for that. One, this committee is new, so there may be the need or desire to meet more frequently. So we really tried to do our best to, just based off of conversations between staff and supervisors who really wanted this committee, and then those here on the committee, really tried to do our best to provide you with at least a minimum of meetings per year. And then, once we set the calendar, you all will determine how many that is, if it's above and beyond the monthly.
So I'm wondering though, if this is written the way that it is, shouldn't have the word at a minimum?
We can certainly add to that if we would like. I don't think that is necessarily something that has to be spelled out. Again, I think sometimes we're getting a little too granular on that, because the intent of it is that you would meet monthly, and so that would be, even though not written, I can certainly add that in, but the intent would be that at a minimum.
I mean, if these are our bylaws and it says we shall do this, it just seems like, I don't know.
I can do that.
Okay, 5.3.
I just have a clarification question on 5.2. The meeting shall be held during regular business hours, and then R3 is to approve the calendars. So it's just within the constriction of whatever we choose, but within the business hours.
That is correct.
And that's up until 5 p.m.
Correct.
Following up on that, what happens if the meeting goes past 5?
We will be adjourning by 5, and what we would do, if there are any other items on the agenda at that time, and I will definitely defer to CEO Rickert and County Council on this, but I would believe that we would just move those items to the next meeting on the calendar.
Alrighty. Okay, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 6.1. Sure.
Under section 5.5, council, with regard to the Brown Act, since this is a committee, are we required to have open public comment for non-agendized items?
If it's at a regular meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad you pulled that back, because I forgot I had a question that I thought was belonged in a different area, but it looks like it belongs here. That we have pledge and prayer at each meeting. Would that need to be included here in 5.1?
So that's not something that is standard, but it's definitely something we can add. The one thing that I would say as a caveat is that we don't have anybody to schedule those invocations. Like we do with the Board of Supervisors, we have staff that make those calls, and that's part of their daily duties. So in that case, that would not be available, but what I can say is the pledge we can absolutely do, and then ask committee members if you would like to recruit, or if you would like to say, ask somebody to do the prayer, or we can take a moment of silence if we don't have anybody who could do that prayer. That's what we've done in the past at board meetings. Again, I'm not on council if I'm wrong on that, but we could do that if that's something committee is interested in, I believe.
Yes, that's.
Okay, moving on, section 6.1. Okay, 6.2. 6.3.
Sorry, really quick, backing up, was that a consensus that you wanted that added?
Well, I assumed we needed somebody to make a motion for the changes that we did.
Not necessarily, when you go to make a motion in a second and then give a final vote, we would just basically, that motion would include as amended as we discussed. So as long as I'm making them noted here, it would just basically need to be included in the motion as amended during this board meeting.
Okay.
I would like to say added. I'd like to hear from the rest of the committee.
I'm fine with those changes.
As am I.
Me too.
I'm okay with the changes. I would like to have it come back before we approve.
And then you're going to add.
Yes, it would be coming back for you guys to approve, yes.
And then you're going to add a minimum to section 5.2.
Correct.
Okay, section 6.1, or I think we're on 6.2, sorry. 6.3, 6.4, 7.1, 8.1. I had a question of council. So what constitutes a conflict of interest, real or apparent, as it would relate to this committee?
I don't think there would be a lot for this particular committee, but it's real language that is typically put in just as precautionary, but usually that's more concerning contracts, and your committee is not likely to be entering into contracts.
Okay, thank you. All right. So on this last part, on the last page, any comments on this last page? So I had a question and sort of issue about this 15 days prior to the meeting. So when or if we revise these bylaws, it says these bylaws may be amended by the vote of the majority of the committee members at a regular meeting of the committee after notice of the proposal for an amendment has been given to all committee members not less than 15 days prior to the meeting at which such amendment is to be considered. All such amendments shall be subject, and there's a word missing there, it should be to the approval, or to approval by the Board of Supervisors. I mean, we got these ones with only 24 hours notice, so why would we have to have 15 days before we could bring bylaws back?
I will actually defer to council on that one.
So typically be because these would be amendments to the bylaws that would be already in place, and these ones haven't been in place. And it looks like they're gonna come back to you for some approval in the future at this point. This is a brand new committee and just trying to get the bylaws in place.
Council, would that 15-day only be once the bylaws are actually approved by this committee, adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and then any additional amendments after that? So the amendments we're working on today are not subject to that 15-day, correct?
That would be correct.
Right, but I still think we should change this number to maybe 7. I don't understand why it needs to be 15.
Is there statutory authority for that?
No, it's just a number that has been used in the past, from what I can gather on other bylaws.
I'm fine with 7 days notice.
In consensus from all other committee members?
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. All right, so that would change to 7. All right, that's all I got. So, Do we have a motion? Oh, thank you. Do we have any public comment?
We can take a motion in a second before we take public comment. However, we can take public comment first as well.
Thank you, Laura Hobbs. I was just looking at section 2.3, and I would advise that that be stricken because there are already existing laws that prevent one from impeding the work of the ROV or her office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also agree, wording is very important. Hinder, as legal counsel probably knows when she uses words like kinda or almost like, because me, knowing that these elections are very important, would like to make sure that the board has got a legal counsel that's coming in ready with the answers to questions. A legal counsel that isn't going to say kinda and almost like. A legal counsel that's going to be taking elections serious, like I would like. So I'm paying attention, but this is called bylaws. Bylaws. Bylaws is because we're establishing rules right now, and we're not going to rush the rules. I would like to make a motion that we continue this when we get the wording and the little niches and rules all worked out, because we're talking about our elections here. We're not talking about some little gray matter or kinda gray matter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments on item R2?
I second what he said.
All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board or to the committee. Do we have any motions?
I make a motion that we pass the bylaws as amended.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I still just need more clarification. So we've orally discussed the changes, and I think we all have a good handle on that. And then we don't know what our next meeting is. We don't know when we're going to hear back from the board. We don't know if there's going to be changes that. I just feeling a little uncertain about what the future is, like how long we're going to have this, if there's going to be any trouble changing it when we need to.
So I will be bringing this item back for this committee as amended today for consideration for approval to the Board of Supervisors. So you guys will all see it again, and that I will make sure to agendize it if it's the consensus of this board and the recommendation of council that we bring it back for future approval. We can certainly do that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. From all those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, R3.
So it looks like the next one is mine. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board, Stephanie Blankenship, Chief Deputy Clerk of the Board. Today, before you for consideration are the proposed meeting calendars for the years 2023 and 2024. When preparing the calendars, I considered board chamber and staff availability, and most importantly, upcoming elections. On each proposed meeting date, meetings would convene at 2 p.m. and adjourn at 5 p.m. One request that I have is after publishing the proposed agenda, I did realize that I proposed a meeting on December 2nd of 2024. As the Thanksgiving holiday is that Thursday and Friday before that, I would be unable to publish an agenda on those days. So my recommendation at this time would be to amend the proposed 2024 calendar to remove the December 2nd meeting date and add a meeting date to December 9th if this commission wishes to do so. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay, it's open for discussion. Any discussion?
I have a question on the meeting for next Monday. and pursuant to the Brown Act, we have to have an agenda published by tomorrow. Madam Clerk, do we have agenda items for the next meeting?
We have one based on our last discussion.
Right. So that was one question, and there's one meeting, are we voting on these separately by year or all together?
We can do it however we want.
I-
If you have comments
I
on
have one meeting
particular
in
dates.
March that I cannot make, yeah, absolutely, I'll be out of the country.
Okay, so let's look at that. So that's,
March 18th, I will be on a family vacation.
so we could move that to the 11th or the 25th.
It'd have to be the 25th, I will be in the Mediterranean right after the election.
Okay. Well, let's tentatively move it to the 25th until we get comments from other people.
That's it for me, thank you.
I have an issue myself with the 30th of this month. I have a family reunion I'm going to, and my plane arrives back here at 3 p.m. So I could be here theoretically by about 3:30. Or I'm wondering if we could move that meeting to another date.
My recommendation, because we're meeting 3 weeks in a row, is that we just remove that meeting from the calendar altogether. Because you do meet again the day before the November 7th election, which is the very following Monday, and you meet the Monday right before that on the 23rd too. So I think that would be safe, as long as this committee is okay with that, to just remove that altogether if you'd like, since the week before and the week after have meetings, so moving it one way or another.
I'm fine with that. How do you guys feel about that? All right. Any other comments? Let's start with 2023. Any other comments about 2023? So we're showing removing the October 30th meeting. Otherwise, everybody's good with that? And then for 2024, just out of curiosity, why only one meeting in January?
So if we're looking at the holiday schedule, and we're looking at it being 3 months after the election, we can choose to have one on the 22nd, if you would like, January 22nd, to make it 2 meetings that month. Our bylaws, like I said, our bylaws say that we can only meet monthly if we so choose, but if you want to add a meeting to that, I'm happy to do so if that's the consensus of the board.
I would personally like to add a meeting on the 22nd. Do you guys have any opposition to that?
I think that's actually a good idea, because we'll have dates for the labs and everything by then.
Well, plus that we have the election coming up in March. So, okay. Okay, and then any comments about February, March? We already changed the date in March. April, and then when we get to May, we're starting to go monthly, but we have no meetings in July. Is there a reason for that?
Correct. That falls into kind of the empty void where it's not 3 months before or after an election. So I gave this committee that month to go dark if they so choose, or if you so choose. We could also consider, if you're not happy meeting just once per month in May and June, we can take a meeting away from April and only meet twice in April, and then come back in May and meet twice, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think it's far enough in advance that if we decide we want a meeting in July, we can call in later. Okay. All right, so anything else in 2024? So I'm showing we're canceling the October 30th meeting in 2023. We're adding a January 22nd meeting in 2024. We're changing the March 18th meeting in 2024 to the 25th. And we're removing the December 2nd meeting and placing it on the 9th.
That is what my record shows, yes.
Perfect. Do I have a motion?
And do we want to take public comment on this after you make the motion in the second? Again, we can still take the motion in the second, but we do still have public comment.
I'll make the motion that we approve the calendar as amended.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Alrighty, do we have any public comment?
I would like to recommend that you do have some evening meetings, and perhaps October 30th would be a good opportunity to have the first evening meeting. A lot of parents are not available during the day or at work during the day. Same with the general citizenry. Most people work 9 to 5. This would give them an opportunity to participate with you guys and give their input as well.
Thank you for that comment. We were told by, I don't know whether it was the clerk of the board or county council that we,
If I could comment, Madam Chairman, it's the availability of staff and security presents a cost factor.
So who determined the cost factor? Was that something that the Board of Supervisors decided upon?
This committee wasn't set up with a budget, so a cost consideration was given when we have our meetings.
Okay, so the ultimate authority was the Board of Supervisors?
The Board of Supervisors could make whatever changes they would like to that schedule.
Okay, thank you. I would, as one, would prefer to have some evening meetings just sprinkled in there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
If we can't have an evening meeting, would it be where people could call in with their remarks during open session?
Our system does not give us the ability to do that.
How are we able to do that during the COVID restrictions?
So our system is failing miserably. And COVID is actually one small part, but still one part that helped break it. So unfortunately, we have removed any of those options from us as we no longer need them. And so we've removed them as options for use in board chambers.
I have a question, Madam Clerk. If the public wanted to reach out and send us an email, does this committee have a general email box that would be available?
We do not, but currently we are receiving, if we receive any emails for this committee, we are keeping those in the meeting file that we maintain at the clerk of the board's office. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, so what do you mean in the meeting file? I mean, how do we access it?
I can certainly send that to you. I have contact information for each committee member, and I can make sure that that gets to everybody. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn the time off.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Alrighty, so we have, anybody else would like to speak on this item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Alright,
Did I get all ayes or was there any nays?
all ayes.
Sorry.
Okay, there's no other agenda items. Consent meeting adjourned.
But before we adjourn, can we request to have, or how can we request to have items added to next agenda?
You can make a motion.
So typically what happens when items get added to the agenda, the chairman would reach out to the clerk of the board. If it's within the law, then we can agendize those items. Typically, motions at meetings would be made to add items to a future agenda. So if a motion is made during a meeting and it has a second and the majority of votes, then we can add those to future agendas. That would be the easiest way that you could do that.
So it'd be easiest for me to make the motion now for something I want to add for the next meeting.
That is correct.
Okay. I would have to add an agenda item to our next meeting to make an ad hoc committee consisting of Ronnean Lund and Bev Gray for the purpose of examining the recall petitions for Kevin Cry.
I second that motion.
Discussion. I'd like to say that at this point in time, I don't think that we would be able to do that because we're a committee, we're not a board or a commission, and we're, yeah, go ahead.
Are those not viewable to the public?
Petitions for the recalls are not viewable by the public under the Public Records Act. 7920.11.
Yeah, at this point, we're not considered public officers.
Could you tell me that number again, please?
Off the top of my head, and I could have it in the wrong order, I believe it is 7920.110.
7920.110.
110.
Thank you.
And how many members were going to be on that?
2-person.
Okay, just making sure.
Well, so a motion was made to put this item on for discussion on the next agenda?
Yes, discussion and voting.
Okay, discussion and possible action. So if we could put that on the agenda and we can discuss it then.
Can I get clarification on who those ad hoc committee members were that you wanted included on the next agenda? Was it Ronnean Lund and Bev Gray? Did I get that correct?
Yes, sorry, I referred to her as Beverly, but yes, Bev.
So it's my recommendation at this time that if you want to have or agendize an ad hoc committee, that we can move forward with agendizing that. The purposes of that ad hoc committee, I don't believe that we are able to make that request. When it comes to inspections or oversight of any kind that would be off-site, outside of these committee meetings, that's where I would recommend creating ad hoc committees. This committee probably, well, not probably, I highly recommend, obviously, not a quorum, so that would consist of 2 people. And in that way, if you needed to do anything off-site, you could do that.
Anything else?
I have a question of council. Is there any difference in access to those signatures between this being merely an advisory committee and us being officers? Or just the law?
Under that particular code section, it specifically states is that officers, public officers, and public officials with the duty to receive, process, and draft a memorandum concerning those petitions are the only ones that are authorized to have access to the petitions. So I don't think it would be.
I think the word examine is in there too, but I have to look.
So my recommendation when creating an ad hoc committee would be to follow the purposes that are within your resolution that establish this committee. So 1 through 5 that I previously stated, you could establish an ad hoc committee to perform those duties that were established in that resolution. That would be my recommendation.
Well, that's where this was inspired from. Maybe I have the legal areas incorrect. But I know that there's a concern about the statistical anomaly in the petitions, and it just seems like there should be some way to have visual oversight by somebody of those petitions. We were informed, well, I should say the members of the Modi Recall were informed by Kathy Darling Ellen that there's statistically there's 25 to 30% of invalid signatures or invalid signers, and this recall has a much lower rate. So thinking of fair and transparent elections and the things that we were appointed to do, it seemed that would be under our purview, but it seems like we need to go back to the board and get things worked out.
I will say that there is a process by which those petition signatures can be reviewed, but it is a judicial process that would require a writ petition being filed in the Superior Court.
So actually, it's Government Code 4924.110, and it states the materials described in subdivision A, which references the petitions and such, shall not be open to inspection except by the following persons: a public officer or public employee who has the duty of receiving, examining, or preserving the petition, or who is responsible for preparation of the memorandum. So it does include examine. And as an election board, our duty theoretically would be to examine or whatever word you want to use, election materials, election processes, etc. So anyway, we will revisit that.
I have one more follow-up question for County Council. That writ petition being filed with the Superior Court, would that be our committee that files it, the Board of Supervisors that file it, an individual that files
It would
it?
typically be an individual that files it.
Thank you.
Anything else, anybody? Okay, meeting's adjourned.
Before we adjourn. So there was a motion and a second on the table to bring forward at a future agenda the consideration of an ad hoc committee. I'm still not clear as to what the purpose of that ad hoc committee is going to be. If it's going to be what is written in the resolution, we can certainly do that, or did we not want to move forward with creating that ad hoc committee?
Could the ad hoc, I mean, it's not on there, but could the ad hoc committees, sorry,
You would be limited to reviewing public records to ensure compliance with state and federal election laws by election authorities, review complaints filed with the election authorities located within Shasta County, review and inspect all election assets, regularly prepared reports would be here. So I would imagine the first three are things that could be done off-site if needed.
okay, what I was gonna ask, to research the issue further as far as the petition being filed or something along those lines.
I apologize. Committee members, we have, our county council did have a prior obligation, so she had to step out. And so here we have Patricia Weber here for us. So if you actually wouldn't mind, as she just stepped in, if you could please ask that question again and see if she has the answer.
Hello. I had wanted us to discuss and possibly vote on forming an ad hoc committee that would review the recall petitions for Kevin Cry. However, I was informed that they're not viewable, that even the Board of Supervisors would not be able to view those petitions, that only by a writ of petition being filed in the Superior Court could anybody review those petitions. And so I'm wondering about the advancing of still having an ad hoc committee to look into that further, of how we would be able to get to that point.
Good question. I would have to clarify that statute, and I'm running cold on that, but I suspect that the petitioner in the writ would be the individual, or the petitioner, yes, would be the individual that would be allowed to review those documents if the writ was successful. But I do want to caution you under the Brown Act that we're only allowed to discuss items today that were agendized. And I understand you're setting potential action for next week to further discuss this item and perhaps give an action on it. So I would advise that any discussions that go into great detail on the subject be continued until Monday.
I would like to go ahead and go forward with it then. Maybe on Monday we could discuss getting more feedback from County Council on it.
Yeah, I already. There's the other option of the being a public official. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Should we take a roll call vote?
Yes, all those in favor?
Oh, well, I said.
We can do a roll call?
Yeah,
Sure.
let's just do a roll call.
Okay, so to clarify, we're voting on bringing back this ad hoc committee.
Bringing back it as an agenda item to discuss for the ad hoc committee.
I apologize. I'm getting used to your name still. Ms. Baremore?
Yes.
Ms. Michaud?
Yes.
Ms. Lund?
Yes.
Ms. Duckett?
Yes.
And Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Alrighty, anything else? Okay, meeting adjourned.
Why did they say a job?
Aren't you still CAO? Like that.
Hey, appreciate you. Like you. Hey, how you doing, Nick? Good to see you, bro. I see you over there. Good, bro. Yeah. How about you? Did you read a speech for it? No. I was just oh, and then I had to scan the barcode because they were like all my ones. I was like, I have to find this kind of exposed. I mean, it's just busy working. K2. I was reading the article. Okay. Yeah. I'm an asset manager, so real estate development, housing, commercial, Butte County, SHASTA County. No, I'm more of a project manager between construction management and like the and securing the funds, like negotiating the lending and then also tax credits, to change the rate. See you. Take care.
I would say that the chair that was wanting you to come up to speak, and then the chair and your absence.
They were good.
That works.